You're listening to the BBC Radio Wales Art Show podcast. I'm Nicola Hayward-Thomas, and on this week's Radio Wales Art Show, a focus on young performers with Welsh National Youth Opera and Everyman Youth Theatre, and Alex in Wundergarten, based loosely and very loosely on the classic children's tale Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but not a show for the kids. We'll begin, though, with Kommilitonen. That's WNO's production for the youth opera. Alice Farnham's the conductor. Two cast members are with us as well, Oscar Castellino and Will Rennie. Good to see you all. Now, Alice, I wanted to start with you because this isn't the first time you've worked with the Welsh National Youth Opera.
No, I conducted Paul Bunyan 3 years ago, which was their last big production. And we actually performed on the main stage at the WMC, which is incredibly exciting.
And how does this company work? Because it doesn't perform every year. And doesn't.
No, because it's an enormous thing to put together, actually. It takes at least 18 months, a couple of years, really, to put together. We take singers from around the youngest of 16 up to 26, a little bit older, one or two. And we take them, we audition all over Wales. We also go to Birmingham and London. So we take singers from all over the country, all over the world, in fact. And we rehearse from February at weekends, and then at Easter. We rehearse over a sort of period of time whenever they're on holiday, basically, because most of them are students. And then we have we've been rehearsing for the last 3 weeks, and the performances are next week. So we have a big sort of run at the end of about 3.5 weeks.
And it's a company, even though it obviously changes from production to production in some ways. Yeah. It's got a great reputation.
It's a real company. It's a really wonderful company feel. And it's because normally when you work in an opera, you rehearse for about 5 or 6 weeks leading up to the opening night. But we've been rehearsing. We did workshop auditions in November. So it's a kind of really long period of getting to know people over sort of 9 months, really. It's kind of like gestation period. And it really is a kind of, it really has an incredible company feel. We have people, if they don't live in Cardiff, then they all stay in houses around in Cardiff, so they're all sort of living together and learning to cook and things like that. So it's an incredible atmosphere, really bonding, and yeah, it's wonderful. I love it.
Because the two singers, Oscar and Will, neither of you two living in Wales at all at the moment.
No, I'm based in India, and I studied at college, but I couldn't continue because of financial reasons. But WNO gave me a great opportunity to come here and get the training that I require, which is not available in India.
So you've actually flown in from Mumbai to do this show?
I will be leaving after the last performance because my visa runs out. So
right.
So this is quite a good exposure.
Fantastic. And what about you, Will? Because you're living in England at the moment.
Yeah, I'm living in Kent, not as far as India, but just up in Maidstone in Kent. I live with family at the minute. I'm roofing for a living, but it makes more sense for me to be up there at the moment. I'm from Cardiff, and I was living in Cardiff when I auditioned, but by the time I got the role, I was already living up there. So,
so you're working roofing to kind of just being able to carry on with the training, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's not cheap to have lessons weekly, but I'm doing weekly lessons, I live in I went up there for the main reason to live with my father because he's got a pub up there and I can practice. I could never practice in Cardiff in a flat, get everyone banging your door down the middle of the night.
What about your mates that you're working with? I mean, do they know that?
They do on site. Singer? Yeah, I get it every morning on the way and like, oh, give us a note. Well, in a London accent, I've got to knock out some top C's before I've even picked up any tiles in the morning. But it's
brilliant.
It's very different.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about your roles in this piece, because this is a piece that pulls together 3 different plot lines, really. Who's going to start? Oscar?
I'm playing James Meredith, and he is a civil rights activist. He's still living. And in 1962, he was the first African-American to be admitted and to study at the University of Mississippi. He went forward with the rights that he had because they were not admitting African American students, although they had the right to study. And Kennedy, in his inaugural address, sort of promised that, and he used that against the governor of Mississippi, who was in for segregation. He was not willing to integrate society. So that's James Meredith that I'm playing.
And that's one of the threads of this piece, the civil rights movement in the United States. And the other two threads here, Will?
And the other two is the White Rose movement in Nazi Germany. It's just standing up against at least maybe the Hitler Youth and the education they were trying to put in place.
And you sing?
I play Poe Kane, who's Meredith's sergeant in the military. Only a small part at the beginning of the opera, and I'm a chorus member for the rest of it. But yes, I do enjoy singing with Oscar.
Yeah, oh, that's good.
And most of the singers every singer actually has a small role.
Yeah.
They all sing some kind of solo, but they also are in the chorus as well.
So there's an ensemble feel of this.
Yes, it's a very, very much an ensemble feel with step-out solos.
Yeah.
Throughout.
Fantastic. So we've got the American Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah.
We've got 1930s Germany, really, and then there's China as well. This is such a diverse piece, Alex.
Yes, I mean, I think what David Pountney, who wrote the libretto for this, wanted to look at students. It was written for students. It was written for the Royal Academy of Music, and he wanted the singers to be able to play themselves, which is young singers, rather than usually in operas you have to pretend you're 50 or something, you know. So it's students, and so he chose as another branch of student was the Cultural Revolution, and these are two students one in particular who's joined the Red Army and beats up people and kills them and things like that. So they're not. So the idea is that not all students are wonderful, and but the German one is also very interesting because that's these people who publish anti-Nazi propaganda and get executed for it, and that execution is sort of included in the opera, so it's very, very dramatic. But it's also about people who stand up for their rights and what they believe in, and so it's kind of topical in a way with so much news at the moment. It's really.
How do these three very different stories? But I can see there's a common thread. But how do they come together? Are they done separately?
They're kind of interwoven the whole time. I think James Meredith is he's the linchpin. He sort of, in a way, is almost like a Prospero kind of character that kind of holds them all together, doesn't he?
Right.
Really?
So he comments and he looks at the action and he comments. And he said, "I did that too, but I did it in a bit of a different way. I didn't get killed. I was not caught."
Yeah.
So he's also a very intelligent character. So
and this is an interesting bit of staging as well, isn't it? Because it's in the round. You've got the orchestra there on the stage, and the audience is moving around you. Is that a challenge for singers?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a very heartfelt yeah.
At the moment, I mean, we're really getting used to it now. We've met the orchestra now. We've had a fantastic. The Sitzprobe was fantastic. But yeah, it is quite demanding because you're not used to doing it. But I think once we're get into the flow of things, and the audience can be there with us, you just want to go and revolt straight away. You want to go march across the border.
Yeah.
So you really get such a sense of just a rush of energy.
And I think it's very exciting because often opera is quite distant. You've got a whole pit, a big pit, and then you've got these singers, and they seem so far away, even though they're singing incredibly loudly and powerfully. You don't really see them, or at least you can't see them really that well. Whereas in this, there will be singers, they actually grab hold of the audience and take them to places and sing right to them. And it also means, because we've got a big orchestra and we're working with young singers. There's always when young singers are training, it's really hard to be heard over an orchestra sometimes. It's part of the training, and with this we have balance issues, but they can be heard because they're going to be singing right by the audience. The orchestra are a bit further away. The orchestra are on a stage. So in that way, it's quite advantageous, really, because it's more intimate. It feels intimate in a way that often opera isn't so intimate. So.
And for a conductor,
it's a nightmare.
I was going to say, you're going, where's that singer gone now?
It's a massive night. We've got monitors all over the place, and people have to remember to look in them, don't they, Will? And it's a logistical nightmare. But we've got the WNO orchestra side by side with student players, and they are fantastic. They do a lot of contemporary opera these days as well, and they're just wonderful. So, but it's I mean, the next 6 days are going to be terrifying for me. You don't need to worry about that, but it's going to be really scary, but great. It'll be really rewarding.
Let's talk a little bit about conducting and the art of conducting, because I know that you are so passionate. This was the big drive, that once you discovered conducting, that and you feel very, very strongly about the number of women who are given the chance to be taken very seriously as conductors as well.
Yes, I think it really struck me. It was just actually after I conducted Paul Bunyan 3 years ago, and Marion Alsop conducted the last night of the proms, and suddenly the whole world was talking about the fact that, isn't this crazy? You know, why aren't more women conducting? This is the first time we've had a woman conducting the last night of the proms. You know, why? And big questions about, are women discriminated against? And my feeling really isn't, I mean, there is some discrimination, but it's more about the fact it's sheer numbers game. Very few women were considering conducting they just weren't thinking of it as an option.
And why was that?
Well, I mean, it's really, I think it's very complicated, nuanced thing, but I think it's to do with the fact that there aren't enough role models, and it really struck me because I realised, I graduated 20 odd years ago, and there were a few of us then, not many, but a few, and I thought, well, in 20 years' time there'll be lots more, because that's felt how the world was going. And then I suddenly realised a few years ago, actually, it hasn't really changed, except that the women that are doing it are more successful.
Yeah.
And people aren't saying, no, you can't do it.
But there is still a little bit of a feeling that it's a bit of a novelty, in quotes, to have a woman conductor.
And people comment and say, oh, are you a woman conductor? Oh, is it conductress? And
theatre as well.
Yeah, well, yes,
does.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, very, very similar parallels in theatre. And I think conducting is kind of one of the worst, because people, I mean, it's just weird, what is a conductor? And they stand up on a podium. So I started a programme 2 years ago, and we've just moved today to the Royal Philharmonic Society, which is very exciting, who've taken us under their wing. And I run programmes all over the country, and I'm particularly interested in working with sort of young female students, because what's very clear to me is that a female student who wants to be a professional musician and is determined to be a professional musician has all the qualities to be a conductor. Mm-hmm. The women are just not considering that as an option, and they need to. And, they've just got to start. More of them have got to start thinking about it. Whereas lots of young men are thinking, I think I'll be a conductor. I'll be rather good at that. There's no reason why more women shouldn't do it. So that's sort of what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. We're going to talk a bit more about this, I'm sure. But I should say at this point, Kommilitonen by Welsh National Youth Opera, it's on at the Memo Arts Centre in Barry from the 27th to the 30th. Good luck with it. Do stay with us. If you've just joined us, you're listening to The Art Show on BBC Radio Wales with me, Nicola Haywood-Thomas. I want to ask our singers from Welsh National Youth Opera what's happening next, because you mentioned, Oscar, after this show, you're going back to India. Right. Do you carry on your studies?
I'm trying to get the money, but otherwise I have a lot of work to do in India, because opera needs to be promoted there. And I have created a brand called Operawala, which means the opera man. And I had a tour last year, supported by the Italian embassy. So I will do that in case I can't get my funding, and that's fine.
And is there an appetite for opera, for this kind of very, very Western form, I suppose?
The thing is, we have to come to give it to the audience in different format, for example. And during my tour, I performed from in the space where the audience is sitting. We had a story running through, so they may not be able to get. Of course, there are audiences who get it, but we want new audiences all over. I went to museums, colleges, and we went to the audiences, and it's in the same way we're doing at WN and Kommilitonen, where we perform up close and personal with the audience. So they come and they listen to this music. Music's great, but you need to showcase it in such a way that they come and they enjoy the music, then they come again.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Will? I mean, you're carrying on with your training and carrying on with your roofing.
Yeah, well, I'll be straight back on the roof, straight away. And then, I'm going to try, because I haven't had any sort of formal training as such. So I'll probably try for the conservatoires at the end of the year for next September. because I think I'm about ready for that now. So it's not been to any university or anything like that, but so I think it's about time to start really getting into the world.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Well,
absorbed.
Alice is nodding, so I think that's as much encouragement and affirmation as you need.
That's all I did.
Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, so many thanks to all my guests on this week's programme. As usual, there's a podcast available. All you have to do is follow the links on the BBC Radio Wales website. And of course, the Radio Wales Art Show will be back at the same time next week. Till then, thank you.